Is started. All right, let's see if I can do this. Whoops, I didn't mean to do that. I wanted to show my screen, which I can do. Let's see. Welcome to the meeting of the Lake Forest, I'm sorry, the Northeast Chicagoland Passport Club. Could we start the meeting with the Pledge of Allegiance? All right. I pledge allegiance. Can everybody see this? I tried to share my screen. Did it work?
Yeah, take down the bell.
Take down the bell. All right. There we go.
Oh, there you are.
Okay. All right. Can you see the screen?
Yes.
Okay. I pledge allegiance to the flag
of the
United States of America, and to the
and
republic
to the republic
for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Now, you see, there's an advantage to having a secretary of your club, because the secretary of the club would have all this stuff on her screen and would not be as inept as I am in sharing it. Let's do the four-way test of the things we think, say, or do. First, is it the truth?
The truth.
Second, is it fair to all concerned? Third, will it build goodwill and better friendships? And fourth, will it be
beneficial to all concerned?
And some of us add fifth. Is it fun?
Is it fun?
Okay. So let's see if we can get back to the Zoom. All right.
Well, you never left my Zoom screen.
Yeah,
You
you
never
never
left my-
my Zoom screen.
Okay.
I
Whoops.
didn't see any of those
There we go. All right.
forward with the,
I think I need remedial Zoom training. This is why we have secretaries. Seriously though, welcome to everybody to our monthly Passport Club meeting via Zoom. We want to especially welcome Director Michael McGovern, who is here tonight to share some updated information about polio, which we are desperately needing to have. Let's see. A little. What we forget about is that we have a lot of leaders in Rotary who continue to serve in Rotary for many, many years after their years of being a director or a club president or a district governor or whatever. And past Rotary International Vice President Michael McGovern has been, in my recollection, someone who's been passionate about polio for as long as I can remember knowing him. And I think he and I have go back a few years, probably to my year as governor in 14, 15, and maybe even before that when I was helping get the End Polio Now initiative started in District 6440. But in any case, when the New York situation came upon the scene this last week, I immediately thought of calling the person at Rotary International who runs the polio initiatives, the remediation initiatives, and manages that whole initiative, that whole project for the company, for the entity, Carol Pandek. And Carol was busy, and she said, "But you need to talk to Mike McGovern. He knows more about this than I do." So Carol, Mike, you come with Carol's blessing and Carol's recommendation, and so that we don't waste your time. Oh, I like the shirt. I like the shirt, Dr. Robert. This is good.
Just for you.
I should be wearing mine. Well done. So without further ado, so that we don't waste your time, Michael, I would like to invite you to speak now and to unmute yourself and to say whatever you'd like about your Rotary history and what it's like being in a crazy, in our world as a passport club. We're mainly a virtual club, but we're hoping that our other members will join us this evening. So take it away, Mike.
Thanks, Alan. Good to see you. Good to see Robert again. I haven't seen him in a little bit, and I'm not sure if I met any of the rest of you, but I probably have somewhere along the way. So good to see everyone. Alan, I also, you talk about staying active in Rotary. Just before this, I'm on the East Coast in Cape Elizabeth, Maine. I actually spoke to my Rotary Club about polio, which they don't ask me to do too often, maybe once every couple of years, but today was the day. So it was good to be there. And, I think, whatever you do in Rotary, it's, I think what's most important is what you do in your own club in accomplishing different things. So that's, it was good to see my friends there. So you asked me to give a update on polio. My history of polio goes back to 1957. The reason it goes back to then is I recently found I had one of these. I grew up Catholic, and my mother had this Catholic baby book. And she recorded in it all of when we had vaccinations.
Oh, yeah.
And it showed that I had 3 different vaccinations for polio, and they were spread out a little bit. And I can also, I couldn't, I'm 66 now, I was born in 56, but, I don't know why, but I somehow remember getting vaccines. And I can remember going for a polio one. And, I don't remember anything else about that period, but I remember getting the sugar cube and how delicious it was. Because, if you know that song, just a spoonful of sugar helps the medicine go down. That was actually came out of the polio movement. It was from Mary Poppins or whatever it was. But anyway, so, my mother was taking me again. And the first time was in this Portland Exposition building in Portland, Maine. The second time I can remember it was in City Hall Auditorium, and they had it in the aisles. And I remember being ripped at my mother because I was looking forward to the sugar cube, and I got a shot in the arm instead because, the second time I got the injectable. And if someone at my own Rotary Club today asked me, do they still do polio vaccines in the United States for kids? And they do. Surprising. I know, Robert, you look a little stunned. Sometimes, she was a grandmother. She hadn't been in touch with it, I suppose, too much. But every kid still gets, in the United States, in the injectable polio vaccine. They don't get the oral polio vaccine. And, the difference between the two is obvious. One's in the mouth, one's goes in the arm. But the other major difference is that one has a live virus in it, the oral polio vaccine, and it's not in the injectable. So, therefore, the injectable, it is a vaccine. It protects only the person who receives it. The oral polio vaccine, there's a little bit of this, what we call herd immunity, where they secrete it, into the ground, otherwise dispose of it. And it is actually, in most cases, that vaccine that is secreted through feces and through other things. I know it's dinner time. I apologize for this. But, other people pick it up, and then they develop their own immunity. And, by and large, that's what's happened over the last 67 years since Salk started. And then there's this actually since the Sabin vaccine, which is the oral one, that's what's happened is that, most people have gotten the polio shots or the polio drops. Those who've got the polio drops have helped raise the overall level of immunity in the area. And, what's happened is, most of the world got vaccinated, and Rotarians, back in the mid 80s, they were looking for a big project, and some of you know this, some of you don't. Eventually they settled on polio eradication because they thought, we shouldn't just treat a disease, we ought to try to get rid of one. And they knew about the smallpox experience, and in the Philippines, the Rotary Foundation had funded something called a 3H grant, which was health, hunger, and humanity. And, just shortly after doing that, there wasn't any more polio in the Philippines. And, Rotarians being smart said, well, if we can do it in the Philippines, there's no reason we can't do it in the rest of the world. So back in 87, 88, particularly, they tried to raise 120 million. They announced a goal at the convention that year of in 88 of 219 million. Rotarians today, there's about 36,000 clubs. I don't know the exact number now. But every club is encouraged through various mechanisms to, raise about $1,500. It depends on the size of the club. Larger clubs can do more. Some clubs have people that, give a lot of money, do more. My club actually has a football pool. Every week we try during the National Football League season to pick the teams that are going to win. And there's no prizes, but everyone pays $50 that wants to participate. And we just have comedians in the club who make fun of everyone who does poorly and makes fun of those who do well as well. So the point is there's lots of different ways you can raise money. It's from writing checks, but you can also have fun and do different activities to make it known. But anyway, I diverted a little bit there. Rotarians, it was originally 219, but since then, Rotarians through individual contributions from monies clubs have raised and clubs have given, through district funds that are given, something called district designated funds. Rotarians have given over $1 billion to polio eradication. Absolutely amazing. A few years back, around 2006-07, Rotarians, including in your area, approached Bill Gates Sr. And Bill Gates Sr., liked the idea of vaccinations. He knew his son was interested in vaccinations. And Bill Gates Sr., who was the head then of what's now the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation, offered Rotary, I think at the point, I think it was a 1-to-1 match, 100 million for 100 million. And it was over like a 3-year period. Rotarians raised the money. And ever since then, we've had one matching program after another with the Gates Foundation. Right now, it's for every dollar we give, $2 is given by the Gates Foundation to Rotary to allocate how it sees fit. But anyway, they've now given $1.28 billion to Rotary. So if you take if you take overall the monies that Gates has given, the money they've given to Rotary, the money Rotarians have developed from their own sources, and some investment income that we've also spent, that back when interest rates were high. Rotarians effective this year will have given $2.5 billion to eradicate polio. It's absolutely amazing. I think so much of what Rotarians do isn't recognized, isn't understood. But it's been over 35 years, and it's the monies that we've spent, have been well spent. There's 20 million people now walking on Earth who otherwise would have died or become paralyzed if we hadn't done this. We also, helped with Ebola. We helped a lot, recently with COVID. But we really helped to develop what we call a surveillance system in a lot of Africa, where there's 176 laboratories now that are there that can look at polio issues, look at feces, analyze to see if the polio virus is in them. And, that's been enormously successful in the strides with public health. But, it hasn't always been easy. We've lost people as a result of violence against polio workers. Earlier in Nigeria, particularly of late in Pakistan and Afghanistan. I just got a thing today from a polio chair in Afghanistan that ISIS there, ISIS KP had put out some, my phone always rings. Let me just get rid of the call. I'll call you back later. I want to call my brother in Florida. I lost my train of thought. So we've made this great progress with these funds, all those people walking. And, and we get down to, we eliminated it from all these countries, working with our partners, WHO, UNICEF, CDC, Gates, now with an outfit called Gavi, and obviously with the governments. We've gotten it down so that last year we only had 6 wild polio cases worldwide. Only 6. They were last year. They were in Afghanistan, Pakistan, and we had a case in Malawi. Well, this year it's around 20. I think Afghanistan's only 1. I meant to look at the numbers today. Most of them are in Pakistan, but we've also had 4 cases in Mozambique. And Mozambique is right next to, it's down in Southern Africa. It's right next to Malawi. And, we do all this genetic analysis. I don't do it. I don't know anything about that stuff, but the scientists who work with us do it. And, they do that genetic analysis. And what they found is that they all trace back to Lahore, Pakistan. So it was apparently someone who visited Lahore, or someone from Lahore went to Malawi or went to Mozambique. So it spread around that little area. So, that's the state. Wild poliovirus, Pakistan seems to be doing a good job, very dedicated Rotarians there. In Afghanistan, we don't have too many Rotarians, but the Taliban is working with the partnership to end polio. They've renewed, not totally, but in most of the country, house-to-house vaccinations, which is the way you get this done. So we're cautiously optimistic there. But it's been, a rough year, to be honest. We get down to 6, go back up to 20 is not good. But it's the thing that, is really bugging me right now, and I think it's bothering other people who are in the partnership, who work at, some of the leadership in the partnership, is these so-called vaccine-derived cases. These are cases where we have people who aren't immunized, who don't get vaccines, or they're where we have polio vaccine efforts, to do vaccinations, immunization days, and they don't do a good job of reaching everyone. And sadly, about 6 years ago, we only had 5 of those cases worldwide. 2 years ago, in 2020, we had 1,100 cases. We went from 5 to 1,100. Last year it was down to 670. This year it's about half that. A lot of them were in, about 80% of them last year were in northern Nigeria. But but they are in different places. In bringing it up to date, and some of you may have read some of this, is that about a month ago, maybe, I lose track of time, there was an announcement in London that with environmental sampling we take water samples and we see if the polio virus is in it. There was an environmental sample that was done near a treatment plant there, and it showed that a vaccine-derived virus was in the water. And this came from Jerusalem. We know that because of the genetic sequencing. And it was concern, and big publicity around the world. New polio case in London, which were the headlines. Actually, there wasn't a case. There was no individual in the London situation who actually came down with polio, but it was seen in the environmental sampling. Then today in London, a story came out on the BBC News that apparently the government in London announced they're now immunizing every kid under the age of 5 polio in a big drive. I don't know the details of it. We haven't received any official notice from the Global Polio Eradication Initiative Partnership, but it's interesting. And what happened was, reading the story, in fact, I found out about this. Ellen knows Ravi Ravindran. I got a call from Ravi this morning, and with a link to then he sent me the link to the BBC article. But apparently, there's 8 or 9 additional places in London where they've had positive environmental samples showing this vaccine-derived polio. So it's not only the one positive environmental sample, there's all these others as well. Yeah, so it shows the UK government is probably being wise, even though they haven't had a single polio case, to begin providing, a full vaccine drive. And I don't know which vaccine they're using. I don't know any of that. All I know is what I've been able to gather. And Carol Pandak, who Ellen mentioned, I had an email or 2 back and forth about it today, but we don't know a whole lot of details. Then we have the situation in New York. Rockland County, which is just, if you're familiar with, if you've ever gone over the George Washington Bridge, the Tappan Zee Bridge, on the westerly side, your side of the Tappan Zee Bridge is Rockland County. And Rockland County is interesting, where the polio director, the Rotary director for my part of the world and for most of Canada is actually from Rockland County. His club is the Rotary Club of Northern Rockland County, I think. That's where we've actually had an individual who's come down with polio, who showed up at a hospital in New York City, who had disability, who had, it ended up after a bit of testing, this happened in June, actually, they figured out it was polio. They've done the genetic sequencing, and interesting enough, it's related to that same genetic sequence of polio that we saw in London and that we saw in Jerusalem. So, when we've said that this is only a plane ride away, this is proving that out. And, I have seen some, there's some Rotarians be engaged in New York. Some of the district governors there, we've encouraged them to meet with the health officials to see how we can help. It's not something that we would necessarily help financially, because New York will take care of it, through, their own funds and through the CDC. But it's worrisome, to suddenly think that, we could get polio again in the United States. And, when I mentioned the 20 million people who have, that we've saved from getting polio, to think that there might be people in this country who get it. So, it's very troubling times. The partnership still works closely together. Rotary serves a number of those different committees. One positive development, I think, was the president of Rotary, Jennifer Jones, was in Pakistan this past week, met with a lot of government officials. She had some very good meetings with some of the frontline workers, particularly women, sat down and had meetings with them, vaccinated some kids, and they did some filming too, which, I think we'll see in different Rotary media opportunities to, see her activity there. And, she really, but she most enjoyed, she said, I had a FaceTime with her Sunday morning, Sunday night her time, where she really enjoyed meeting with the workers and hearing what their concerns are. Their number one concern is security. Not a surprise with some of the situation there with the anti-government elements. Their number one concern was pay. Typical workers. But number third was they want umbrellas because of the heat, and flasks for water. And we supply them water bottles, but environmentally, people don't like that. I understand that, plastic water. And so I went back and forth the last few days with disease, and like everything else, the cost of getting umbrellas, believe it or not, and flasks was over $1 million. Because we're immunizing 43 million kids next month, or actually later this month. It begins on August 20th in Pakistan. So, I had to write back to Jen today and say, we just can't get those supplies in to make it effective, by August, by 10 days from today. But we're working with the government there, with their polio head to try to do that. So, every day there's a new issue. Every day that there's a new challenge. But we, meaning all of Rotaries, come through a lot, and Rotarians have continued to be supportive. And I'm still confident we're going to win polio. We saw for the most part, it's out of Africa at this point, the wild polio virus. We haven't seen, and I hesitate to say that, as I might jinx it, we haven't seen any wild polio virus cases here in the States or in South America. We have tremendous concerns about South America and low immunization rates in some of those countries. Brazil, for instance, the president there, Bolsonaro, I think his name is very anti-vaccine and has been vocal about that. Even, I don't want to get political in the United States. It's enough politics in the United States, but the previous administration at one point said we needed to get out of the World Health Organization. And, that's not the answer. And it was interesting that Congress, both Republicans and Democrats, were very helpful. The U.S. government supplies about $240 million a year to polio eradication. Ann Matthews, a Rotarian from South Carolina, chairs our advocacy committee. And we meet with the different people who appropriate the money to try to get it. And that's been very successful. We work on that quite a bit with the Gates Foundation. And, not a lot, get a lot of questions about, is the divorce affecting, the situation? And, in part because we're having to spend a lot more money for these vaccine-derived outbreaks. A week ago, the Gates Foundation put $100 million into the partnership specifically to deal with the funding shortfalls, to deal with all of these outbreaks. The overall polio budget right now is $932 million, of which Rotary allocates $150 million of that to the partnership. With that, we buy vaccines, we pay the health workers, we help with what we call the outbreak response. We help to pay for the labs, the surveillance that goes on. We do what we call social mobilization, which is basically everything from billboards to town criers, to you name it, to convince mothers to, and it's mostly mothers, to put the vaccines. We spend a little bit on what we call gender initiatives, because women are a lot more effective at this than men in the convincing. And we want to make sure that, throughout the partnership, that women are key parts of the decision making. And interesting, the Rotary staff for polio is about 6 or 7 people. It's an all-female staff. Every one of them led by Carol Pandak. So sometimes when we're in the partnership, the polio partnership, and they take surveys of what's your percentage. Rotary comes out, well, maybe not good, because we're not 50-50, but regardless, what they do, there are obviously more men Rotarians than women, and we have had a challenge with getting in the individual countries where we have polio, women into the leadership positions. I think Pakistan's only had 1 woman district governor. Some of you probably aware, Rotary had some good news this week that with the nomination of Stephanie Urcher, who I think is from your zone, I'm not sure. But she'll be the president after Gordon McInally, who will be succeeding Jen. So, we're getting there, but it's there's good days and bad days, and your support's more crucial, more important than ever. So, Alan, maybe if we spent the rest of the time answering any questions there may be, and happy to answer
Well,
any.
I'd like to just thank you very, very much for your summary, and you're bringing us all up to date. It has to be very demoralizing for you. We've had this message of this close for so long, and I know last year there was telling my family members, this is why we donate, guys. We're almost there. We're this close. We've only had 2 cases, and then boom, this, looking at the numbers month after month, and it's so demoralizing to see them creeping up again. But it is 1 step forward, 2 steps forward, 1 step back, or 1 step forward, 2 steps back. It's gotta be. We just have to stay the course. And that must be so difficult. I know when I was over on the NID, you mentioned women and the lack of women who are able to make those trips. We were able to get back in the rooms where the women were in the households in India because we were women and we were not the men going back there. And so they sent us to go do the vaccinations of the children. And that was one of the things so there's an advantage for women who want to volunteer to do this kind of stuff, because we've got the access. But how do you feel about that? We seem to get so close to there's a 3-year, got to stay free of polio for 3 years. Otherwise you can't consider yourself completely done with the project. So how do you feel about that, Mike? It's got to be tough.
Alan, we went a full year in Pakistan without any cases.
Oh, wow.
Of
So we
any.
did do it. Yeah.
Yeah, we went, I think it was about 8 months in Afghanistan.
Yeah.
I think, I always look more deeply at it. And I look at Pakistan, for instance, almost all of the cases have been in one village.
Oh,
It's like, most of you, you're not all from Illinois maybe, but it's like they're all in Evanston and they're nowhere else in the country. That's how, narrow the area. There's a town called Mir Ali, which is in South Waziristan, North Waziristan. And, that's where the case, except that, you talk about the ups and downs, in the past week, where there hadn't been any positive environmental samples other than in that area. In Pakistan, suddenly there were 8 that popped up.
In major cities.
in major cities, Robert. And, that stinks, it, and it was a surprise, because, we get the charts, we get the, I call them the green and red, that shows positive and negative, and, everything was looking the right way. And I haven't seen the updated one because it's just in the last week, but, we're suddenly going to see a lot of the bad color, popping up. So, it just shows that there's more work to be done. But, the overall issue, I haven't used this close in years, because I asked recently how many years we're using it, and I think the answer was something like 12. And, that we've actually got a committee meeting on the 25th of this month. Formed a new communication subcommittee of the Polio Plus, of the International Polio Plus Committee. And two of the members have professional backgrounds in communications. And, we need to update our messaging, update our maybe even our logo. I think it was going to stick within Polio Now. But, I think there's other things we need to updates to be helpful. The other thing I'm happy about is that the October issue of the Rotarians during World Polio Day month always features a polio piece. And there is a lengthy article, which I had a chance to get an advanced copy of, that's all about these vaccine-derived cases and explaining to the Rotarians what they are, how they come about, what we're doing to address them. And, I look at it, Rotarians are generally optimistic. We generally see the good, we see the positive, and as you pointed out, there's been a few setbacks, but I think we need to be upfront and honest with the setbacks that we are experienced, that we're having. But but even in the article, particularly through this new oral polio vaccine that we now have, 400 million doses of it have already been given with the new oral polio virus vaccine. New oral polio virus vaccine. You don't get the vaccine-derived cases like you do with the old viruses. Okay. It's still under an early use license. There's only been a couple of breakthroughs that we've had where we've still seen, but it's like, it appears to be dropping where they're using it, and where it's effectively being used, the population's taking it, like more than a 95% drop in the instances of the vaccine-derived cases. So, even though we have bad days, and even though this current spate of environmental sampling is worrisome, overall I remain optimistic. But one thing I told my own Rotary Club tonight is, I thought of it late in the day, but I'm going to call the head of the CDC in Maine tomorrow and ask him, they're doing environmental sampling for COVID at, some of the cities and towns are doing for them. If he could help to arrange, that they'll bring some samples to the lab, his lab, and specifically to check for the polio virus, because, New York, that's only 275 miles away. It's not that far, and there's a lot of New York license plates in Maine this summer. So, I would think that, in the Chicagoland, which I see you're using that nomenclature there, I would hope that maybe someone might encourage the officials there as well to do some environmental sampling. I don't think they'll find any, but at the same time, people ask, people before this New York thing, or since then, someone asked me, are they doing any environmental sampling for polio in the United States? And the answer is no. No one's been doing it.
Well, they are in New York.
That's what I thought.
They're in New York now, Robert, but I don't think they were.
Nothing before.
Yeah, were they doing it before?
No, nothing that I heard of.
Oh, yeah, but they're doing it now.
Yeah, so this young man that got a paralytic case, that triggered him to start doing it. It's one of the largest areas of unvaccinated people in New York.
Yeah. That
this is in. The young man was never vaccinated. And if it's the Jerusalem strain, Israel reported its first paralytic polio case in March. They hadn't had one since 1989. And something happened in 2013, I remember, was found in the sampling, and they re-inoculated all the children. And they'll probably been doing that, now. But going back to the issue of Pakistan, India, which is a large country, is polio free because there was cooperation with the government. And I've thought for a long time, and I could be wrong, but I'm worried that a lot of polio money is being diverted by thieves in the Pakistani government. And the northern, that a vaccinator can't be protected from someone driving by with a machine gun. That's absurd. Send the military with the vaccinators and protect them. That's a government job, and they're not doing it. At least with the Taliban. And the interesting thing, and I think we talked about it in the club, was during the U.S. Evacuation of Afghanistan, the polio committee was meeting in Afghanistan. They had their meeting. Nothing interrupted the having that meeting. And this was during the withdrawal that week. There are very dedicated people around the world, that are doing this. But I've been thought for a while that there was going to be an outbreak in this country because the anti-vaxxers, we got awakened to the anti-vaxxers when measles spread around the country. That started in Disney World and went in there and all the pockets of anti-vaxxers, well, they somehow got measles. And that's when it became apparent how bad our vaccination rate is in this country. Yeah. In the magazine for RGBI, which is Rotary Great Britain and Ireland, their September-October issue, they called it in their, I had it in here. Oh, they called it the polio bombshell in the August-September issue of RGBI. And they talked about finding it, up in Becton. And this is the first time they had any. And so the government is mobilizing to start doing mass vaccinations. But that's in the RIBI magazine, or the old RGBI. And you can find that online, going in, looking for Great Britain, Rotary Great Britain and Ireland, their website, and find the magazine. It's a great article, but it sure brings to the forefront how we teeting on the edge in the United States and other developed countries. It's only a plane ride away. And it's, what do we do with Pakistan? It's like, what do we do with Pakistan?
Yeah, going, Robert, I thank you for sharing that about the United Kingdom and Ireland. I'd encourage you to look at the BBC website, BBC News website, and put polio into the search box and get the latest update on what you've been just talking about. Afghanistan, I agree with you. It was the week or so that when Kabul was falling in Jalalabad, Afghanistan, the Taliban came to the headquarters of where our Rotary office is for polio in Afghanistan, and they did grip and grin photos outside, indicated their full support, and they've been that ever since. That the real enemy in Afghanistan is ISIS, and they're enemies of the Taliban. They're enemies of any type of progress, and it's a huge worry with the internal conflicts that remain in this country, as well as with a collapse of humanitarian assistance in general. As the corruption in Pakistan, I hope you're wrong. I can't give 100% guarantees. We work with all the different political parties there. We're doing, actually, later this month, we're sending a member of the Rotary cadre, Carol's going, and others to review our grants that Rotary has given in the country, to see that they've been properly applied. The Rotarians there work very closely. They in all the different provinces, meeting with the government officials. But with the budget now for polio eradication in Pakistan is over 200 million a year. I think it's closer to 245. And I was looking at some budget issues. And that's a lot of money for a country like that. And a lot of it's going, some of it's going to vaccines, and all of the monies we go to WHO and UNICEF, and then they pay through a payment system. They're actually paying all the stipends so that it never goes to the government. It goes to directly to the workers. But but that system, who actually checks of who are the workers who are actually showing up for work, who are the ones that are they actually getting the are they fake purple pinkies, are they actually going down the individual streets and lanes? There may be some falsifying of records. I can't say that there isn't, but generally it looks like they're executing the program well. Although these environmental samples, as you said, in the big cities are, that it's just awful.
Yeah.
But the areas we're seeing it remain, the poverty-stricken areas that I've visited, some of them, gone up and down the alleys and lanes, and the sanitation is terrible. One of the things we've helped to fund is some water filtration plants, some of those things. I think that's important. But as I said, there's 43 million kids in that country under the age of 5. But at the same time, you cite the example of India. Rotary worked with the religious leaders in Bihar and Uttar Pradesh. They worked very closely with the government. There's a gentleman you probably know, Hamid Jaffrey, who was quite influential. And the government, God bless them, in India, have taken over the full funding of the program itself. And we're trying to get Pakistan to do more of that. But the country's a bit of a breadbasket now, and they just tossed out Imran Khan, one prime minister, and now there's an acting prime minister who's the brother of the former prime minister, who was known for corruption. So it's there's a reason we only have 3 countries, and it's the particular countries that it is.
Well, Mike, I'm gonna thank you again for all of the information you shared. I know Glenn Garlick has just joined us, and he was looking at the agenda, and we were letting you speak when you were available. So Glenn, you're gonna have to listen to this on the Zoom, I'm afraid, but because his mic has finished his presentation. But I wanted to give Glenn, if he wanted to take credit for this, Glenn Garlick, you can unmute yourself if you want to. He's not listening to me, but if he does want to listen to me, we had a program bringing in the fundraising side. We've been talking a lot about the vaccination side, but we set up a program with Glenn's help as the End Polio NAR chair last year for a Be Like Jack program. And now, Mike, you know who Jack is. You know which Jack I'm talking about. It's Jack Lane, who lives 2 miles away from my house. And so I used to take Jack to Rotary meetings around the district. So we're kind of proud of being part of Jack's team. Jack, over his lifetime, donated, and I know this, and we've got permission to talk about this from his daughter, Tony, Mrs. Tony. He gave the Rotary over $1.5 million. And one of the messages we're trying to give to our members, which Glenn worked on as the Be Like Jack program, was figure out what your Rotary footprint is. What's your footprint at $3 a vaccination? How many kids have you vaccinated with your own Rotary polio donations? So Jack's footprint was 500,000 children saved from paralysis, which is just staggering. And so what we are going to challenge everyone what we challenged everyone in our district to do last year, and Glenn, you can take this on, but we wanted them all to be like Jack, right, Glenn?
Yeah, and I also went and I told them the story of how the Gates Foundation got involved with Rotary.
Right.
Because I think that's a fascinating story, and being in the home district 6440, it's more fascinating for us probably than say a district in Texas or Minnesota, because it's very close to our heart when you know the entire story of the Gates family coming in with Rotary and how influential Jack was and Dave Waring. But yeah, it was a great campaign. This year we followed up with the Polio Plus Society. We're going to do the Polio Plus Society again this year. And I have something special for the clubs that I'm going to go out and see this year as far as donations and ask them something a little bit more special. I'm also working with a group of Dunkin' Donuts where I'm hoping to sell purple donuts on a couple days before.
October 24th.
Well, a couple days before, actually. I got it for 2 days. And I'm going to finalize that this Friday. And then I'll let the district know exactly how I did it. But yeah, so, it's little at a time, but we have to keep plugging away.
But I think asking everybody to think about how many kids can you vaccinate? How many kids
What's your
have you
footprint?
vaccinated against
Right.
polio? And we're going to try to use that same concept as we have Jenny Wojcik on the phone as well, who's going to tell us a little bit more about how many people we feed through our Food for Life program. So we're going to calculate that based on the estimates of how much money a meal costs through the Northern Illinois Food Pantry and things like that. So we're trying to quantify what we do as a club. And Mike, we're just sharing that. I'm just sharing that with you so that you see the other side of what our little club is trying to get started here. We're trying to engage every single member of a Passport Club. Catherine, you are on the staff there. You can help us with this.
Well,
Take it away.
in light of, what's your polio footprint? What is your impact? I'll let you all know. I was going to update you all with this anyway. In 2021-22, we had a goal of raising $1,500 for polio. And I think partly because of the Polio Plus Society, the District Polio Plus Society initiative, we raised $5,600 as a club, which is fantastic. And if we break that down, that is 1,866 vaccines that we provided. So congratulations, club. That's kind of amazing.
Yep.
For this little bitty club has a pretty good footprint.
Right? 2
Yeah.
years old, not even 2 years old. Oh, we are 2 years old, I guess.
Yeah.
Not quite.
So
So
our
it's-
goal this year is $2,200. So we're gonna bump that up. Hopefully, we've got good momentum. So hopefully we'll get that going and maybe get a few more members in the society.
So we're
That's
doing our best. We're trying to get away from, in the old days, it used to be on the annual fund, it used to be $100 per Rotarian per year. And for some reason, Rotary International decided to cut that back to 25. And I think as a club, when we put the goals in, we said, we're going to aim for the $100 for polio and the $100 for E-Ray, every Rotarian every year, so that we can do the projects that we want to participate in, because it's important to be part of the Rotary Foundation. It's our Rotary Foundation. We really want to own that.
Mike,
Yes.
were you in Atlanta for the convention?
Me?
Or anybody here was in Atlanta for the convention and saw Bill Gates come up on stage with a stool?
Yes.
And I was sitting there and I'm thinking, okay, that's nice. Well, he'll talk to us for 10 minutes. Well, he had to stage himself sitting on the stool. And when he started talking about what he saw Rotary doing, his voice cracked.
Yeah.
He had to take a pause.
It was amazing.
We so impressed him. And that was 2017. And it was, I think, 2009 at the International Assembly where he announced the challenge. And I think the neat thing about the challenge, if I remember correctly, is he gave Rotary 24 months, 2 years to raise a matching $1 million. And Rotary did it in less than a year. So he gave an extra $1 million. So it's $3 million. And it's great that, people like that joined us and are pushing it. I was just on the RI website, over the weekend, trying to figure out a learning module, and I won't get into that. website, when I go to pull up polio, it's a mess. It doesn't give a easy to understand story. Too little in places, and it doesn't seem to underscore the significance of what Rotary started. We keep kind of being bashful.
Right.
And in stuff that the Gates Foundation publishes about polio and everything doesn't mention our Rotary, and the World Health Organization, when they talk about polio, they don't mention Rotary usually. We need to mention Rotary.
Yep. All right. Do we have any more questions for Mike? We've kept him almost for the entire hour of our meeting, but we can go on a little bit longer. Any
Just-
more questions? Yes, Mike.
If there aren't any, just to closing comments. One, Robert, thanks for the feedback on the website. You know, the staff has been a little short in the communications area for the last few months, and but even before that, it's you know, I look at it, it's still talking about last year's World Polio Day, you know, when it needs to be talking about this year's, and you know, I think at some of the staff there in Evanston thinks websites are antiquated to, you know, 20th century things, not 21st century things. You know, they're all into, you know, the social media interactive stuff, but yeah, they got to understand Rotarians still look at websites, and you know, I think it's good feedback. I do want to say something with Jack Lane. I had the opportunity to meet him a few times, and you know, he actually gave $1 million to one point to Rotary for something called matching Blaine grants to districts. As back when I was a governor back in 99, 2000, we had Blaine grants available to us, and it was to promote immunizations in our own communities, in our own states, in the United States. It only, the grants only went to US districts, and you had to apply for them. But and then after Jack died, his family, this daughter, I think you mentioned, and it was a couple of others, came to headquarters once when I was a trustee. I was there for a polio meeting or something. And they actually they've given quite a bit more money since he died, which, you know, they said Jack would have wanted. So, you know, again,
Yep.
so I just want to thank everyone. Don't get discouraged. We all have our days of getting discouraged, but you know, there's always a better day forward. And when in those days I get discouraged, I think of the 20 million people walking on Earth who, if Rotary hadn't started this, and it was Rotary, would not have had the good fortune that they've had. So
Well,
thank you.
Michael, we've been blessed to have you with us tonight. Thank you so much for your time and your insights, and your just you know, being an inspiration to all of us who are on this call, and for those who will watch the Zoom meeting afterwards. So really, thank you so much for sharing your evening with us. It's wonderful.
Thank you.
So,
I'm going to hang up and call my brother back. So
okay, you better call your brother back.
yeah, thank you. Bye-bye.
Thank you very much, Michael.
We should also thank Glenn for coming in and telling us what he's up to. So thank you, Glenn.
Thanks, Glenn. Take care, everyone.
Glenn, we will get the presentation to you if you'd like to stay